Want to say hello and welcome to everyone that is joining us today for our webinar here with Barb Jackson. I'm going to go ahead and do some introductions, get this thing going. So my name is Anna. I am a customer education manager here at Encircle. I'm going to be co-hosting this event with my lovely co-host Barb. So we are very lucky to have Barb with us today. If you don't know her, she is the president of Total Contentz. Barb is a true industry veteran and leader in her field. She helps restoration professionals with their contents processing capabilities by providing training and consulting to restorers who specialize in cleaning and inventory and pack out. And so Barb brings with her today decades of knowledge and wisdom and experience, and I am positive that you guys are going to get a lot out of hearing from her today. So I know we're all really excited to kick this thing off. So I'm going to go ahead and let Barb say hi, introduce herself, and then we will take it away.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you so much for hosting this. And it's always great working with you. And we've known each other for a little while now. And I've worked with Encircle for years, probably since they first started. So it's been a really great working relationship. I know a lot of my clients use Encircle successfully. And, I'm always here to help. And actually, 2 weeks ago, I was with a client in North Carolina and we had some specific questions. So I was able to get on the phone and get some live help, actually from Chris. And, it's great. So I really love working with you guys. So,
So the feeling is mutual.
and it's nice to see so many join us today. I see greetings from some of my clients already. I see some familiar names popping up. So welcome. And this is going to be an overview. It's going to go so quick. For those of you that submitted questions and inquiries already, that was wonderful. So I based this whole presentation on those. So we're going to get started and I'll do some overview information, and then we're going to get into your queries. So we have 2 hours together, and Anna's going to participate regarding the inventory. So I will share my screen. So as far as like my background, just briefly, I'll give you, for those that are new that don't know me yet, my nickname in the industry is the Queen of Contents. And I love contents. And I tell everybody, like, if I'm not teaching contents, I'm shopping at like yard sales, flea markets, thrift stores. I love stuff. I like learning. I learn about history through contents. And when people, when we're doing a pack out and people have interesting items, I'm on Google search and, I'm finding out about it. And then, of course, I'm trying to figure out how do we clean it? How do we pack it? How do we store it properly and safely? So I just love content. And I started out with a residential cleaning business years ago. And I tease, I had too many women in my life. I had women working for me, and all my clients were females. And it was just a lot of like detail stuff. So I thought I'm going to start doing office cleaning. I'll hire guys, they'll work at night, cleaning offices, and my life will be easier. Well, the second company that I cold called said they didn't need office cleaning, but they had a 5,000 square foot warehouse full of contents that were, damaged during disasters. And did I have crews that could come in and clean? And I said, sure, not knowing what I was getting myself into. But they had a gal work with me for 2 weeks, showing me what they did. They had one sink, and we had to carry buckets of water out into the warehouse and work off of folding chairs. So it was pretty bad, to say the least. but we got through it. And we actually had two crews working from 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And they wanted to miss the morning and afternoon traffic. And then we also had a team that lived closer to that warehouse that would work 4 in the afternoon until 11 at night. So we had two crews working around the clock. And, it took us a couple of months to get everything cleaned. They loved what we did. The second company I started working for, a similar scenario. I was working for the two largest restoration companies in the Pittsburgh area right off the bat. And if I had known who I was approaching, I probably would have been shaking in my boots. But, just that naivety, I didn't know, and it was exciting. And from there, I found out that most restoration companies here in the Pittsburgh area, they weren't doing pack outs well. So, they had their demo guys, their water guys, doing the jobs. And then, oh, shoot, we got to pack out grandma's contents, including her teacups. And these guys did not want to pack. So they were just throwing stuff in boxes. And by the time we got to the boxes to clean them, there's a lot of breakage. Things were not packed properly. So I felt a lot of pain. I saw a lot of problems at the beginning. And as we would market to other companies in the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, we actually were working for over 30 restoration companies as a subcontractor. So I would walk the job. I would write my own estimate. I would give them a discount. We did not have a warehouse. We worked up to having 5 vehicles with 15 technicians. We were all trained. I could not hire temp services because I was a temp service already. And our advantage was that we were trained. So we had to juggle, as jobs came in, through busy season, we had to juggle, split up teams, make sure all of our clients were taken care of. And then we would rely on like part-time help. So we would have friends of friends, relatives, people that we trusted who wanted to work like evenings and weekends, and they filled in for us. But we always had a supervisor on all of our jobs at any given time. So we always had full control of our jobs, of our team, of our processes. And we had to conform and adjust to all these different contractors we were working with. Sometimes we were working side by side with their team. Other times we were on their job sites alone, maybe after demolition and before the guys started doing the reconstruction. So we always had to blend in and, get along with other teams. So it was a very unique position. And I've been obviously like marketing. I'm the owner. I do all the business side of things. But then I was also out in the field running the jobs as I could, as I needed to. So I've seen a lot. We were on all kinds of jobs, hospitals, nursing homes, the Pittsburgh Museum, commercial jobs, residential, hoarding situations. So there's not too much that we haven't been on. I've traveled across the country for cat losses. I've been to Galveston after the hurricane. I worked the wildfires in Santa Rosa a few years ago. So I'm not saying I know a lot I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And when I don't know, then that's when I reach out to my resources, my friends in the industry, and I network. And, I know who the other specialists are. So that's what I encourage everyone to do, is be comfortable with what you're doing. And you have to stretch a little bit outside your comfort zone, but then to know when to say no, or to know when to call and get more help. So with that said, then let's get into the our presentation. So talking about contents restoration really encompasses so much. So we have pack outs, which could be done on site or off site. We have total loss, which includes inventory and disposal. contents cleaning. It could be done on site or packed out to your facility. There's specialty service providers that are needed for artwork, electronics, refinishing, drying and deodorization is needed, along with storage. And that's on site, maybe with storage units or bringing everything back to your facility. And then the pack back. So we want to identify like what's really going to be salvageable versus non-salvageable. So we need to understand the effects of the perils, right? If we're walking a job, that's like one of the biggest questions I get is how do we know what's restorable or not? And the only way I can really address that is to say it's with experience. If you're not sure at the job site, you could test. You do some test cleaning at the job site to see. So the main categories of contents are going to be restorable, non-restorable, or questionable. And I really encourage you not to bring a lot of contents back that you consider to be questionable, because they kind of end up in limbo. You know, like if they do restore, that's great. That's the easy part. But if you bring them back and they're non-restorable, then we have, you know, some different issues as far as getting approvals from the homeowner and the adjuster for disposal. And then if it's a large amount of contents, then we have the issue of storage of non-salvageable contents. Then when it comes to the salvageable contents, we need to understand the effects of the peril of the residues on the surfaces, and then knowing how to clean, you know, the types of residues and the types of materials that have been affected. So there's a lot at play. Not sure if you've heard this term yet, MIPs, or materially interested parties. So I'm on the IICRC Content Standards Writing Committee, and this is one of the terms that we're using to identify the people that would be involved in the restoration project. So the main player obviously is the insurer, the insurance carrier, and we're having to deal with adjusters. And that could be in person, or I think more and more jobs now are being handled by desk adjusters, which adds its own layer of complexities. And then we have the TPAs, the programs that are dictating how we're billing. And, you know, I know that's presenting a challenge as well. Then we have the insured, the policyholder. So they're either going to be the property owner and, you know, they have the structure and contents, or it might just be the renter and we're dealing with just their contents. And there may be a power of attorney involved. And then, of course, your company. So on our jobs, we always have to identify who is our client. Is it the carrier? Is it the program that we're working with? Or is it the insured directly? So the variables of our jobs include the peril and then exposure. So how many times does exposure come into play? And it could change our scope. It could affect our bottom line, our billing. And so the exposure, how long have the contents been exposed? So if it was a fire loss, the firemen have doused down the house. So now we have wet soot. The longer it sits, soot and moisture creates an acidic residue, and that's going to impact the contents. It could pit them immediately, or it could damage them with time. And then we have man-made delays, waiting for approvals, waiting for other trades to get in so that we can access the building. Then we're dealing with the insurer, the carrier, and their policy provisions. We're dealing with the insured. They could love us on day one and hate us on day three. So, you know, there's just always changing. And then we have our capabilities and resources. So do we have, you know, do we understand our capabilities that we can handle the job? Do we need to call in other service providers? So let's get to some of the the queries you guys had. So I broke these down into like big picture and then production and project management, I think. So one of you was asking about metrics for success, and that's a loaded question. So, just top level, I'm thinking of, obviously personnel and our retention rate. How long have our employees been with us, especially in the contents division? If we have high turnover, it's really going to affect our output and our quality control. What about training? That's crucial for our team. And I know, we hire somebody new and we just got to throw them out in the mix, but we really need to think about an onboarding program and training them, sending them off for training. When people come to our training events, they get to network with other people. And with our introductions, we identify like who are the owners, the managers, and the technicians so that they can find each other and talk to each other and compare notes. Our in-house processes for contents processing. We need consistency and we need accountability. It's one thing to have the systems, but then who's going to make sure that they're followed for every single job? We also want to minimize our liabilities. And, that could be breakage, theft, accusations from the homeowner of things that we did or did not do. And then obviously our profit margins are a huge metric. And, starting out with solid contracts with the insured, documentation, when we're talking to the adjusters and we're agreeing on things, have them put it in writing. They either should be emailing you or texting you. A phone call is not enough. It's your word against their word. So we want to have everything documented. And then collections. How long are you waiting to get paid? How long does it take to send out that first invoice? So your most valuable assets are going to be your frontline workers. So the team that's helping to put people's lives back together again, they need to be solid. They need to be trained and do their work consistently. So the question is, if you're an owner, how much buy-in do they have from you? Have you sat through training? Usually with my training events, I want the owners or managers to be there and then bring their technicians. Or if I do a 3-day on-site training with a company, I want the owners and managers there, because what's the sense of teaching the technicians when they can't implement it or they can't make the investments in the type of supplies I'm recommending? So ownership buy-in is crucial. Supervision, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but are your teams supervised? SOPs are really important. So what are your processes and how do you communicate them? Do you have them written out? Tools to succeed. Does your team have the equipment, the truck? Do they have a truck available to them anytime they're doing a pack out? Or does another truck have to be emptied out so that they can take a truck out to their job site? Their supplies, are they always ready to go? Do they have a pack out kit that's ready that they can just hit the ground running for their new job? Is there a career path set up for your team so that they know, like, they're not going to be a technician forever unless they want to. But, what's the career path? And in this industry, the sky's the limit. When I started my business doing, the cleaning, I never imagined I would be the queen of contents, that, I would be a trainer in this industry. We've been to Australia twice. We've been all across Canada, all through the United States. Last year, we did a 3-month road trip, client to client, and we're going to start our next one in November. So, there's so many opportunities in this industry. And, for technicians, to have a goal to become a certified restorer. is awesome. So that's through Restoration Industry Association that they can attain the CR status. And I'm number 546, but I'm only number 11 for women who have received the CR status. So it's something to be proud of. And I would love to see other women be able to become a CR, have other restoration technicians work towards becoming a CR. And then how about retention for your teams? What incentives do you have for them to stay on or to grow? So someone asked for job descriptions, and that's a little bit too much to go through today. I do have them. If anybody's interested, it's part of our training. But I do want to talk about the positions for our contents division. So the most important role is the contents manager. And they would report to the owner, upper management. But if any of you have been to my classes, you know that this is a very big position. There's lots of responsibility. You have to interact with a lot of people. So the contents manager should be overseeing every single job. They're overseeing the division. They know the profit margins. They have to deal with the carriers. They have to deal with the insureds. They're a liaison between all the players, right? To make sure that these jobs get done properly. So when I had my business and I was working for 30 some different companies, I consider myself the contents manager. I managed my people, my crews. So one of the challenges I see with full service companies or mitigation companies is that the MIT team seems to have priority, that if there's a water loss job, guess who gets called off? It's the contents technicians get pulled off of a pack out to go do a water loss. So while a water loss is urgent, it's leaving the contents team at a loss. And if the team has been told you have 4 days and you have 4 team members to get this pack out done, and now a team member is being taken away to work a MIT job, now what's happening to that pack out? What impact is that having on the homeowner, the insured, or the next trade that needs to come in on that job site? So we don't want to leave our team scrambling, and we always want to make our contents team priority. So we also have the field supervisor. So this position might be called a crew chief. Like, what do you call that person on a pack out? And if you want to put that in the comments, what do you call your lead on your pack out jobs? Are they crew chief? I don't know, team leader? What do you call them? So I recommend calling that position a field supervisor. And I've been telling all my clients this, I've been sharing this with everyone I possibly can. We actually had field supervisor embroidered on everybody's jacket, on their shirts. We would have the field supervisor wear polo shirts where the technicians would have t-shirts. We always wanted our field supervisor to stand out, to be different. When the adjuster calls the contents manager and says, hey, I have a question about this job, this pack out, the contents manager would say, let me check with my field supervisor who's been on that job every day, all day for the last week. So that field supervisor has a liaison, a relationship with the homeowner and the contents manager. Their job is to run that project. So are they OSHA certified? They should be in charge of safety issues, timing of the job, making sure that the truck is loaded, the supplies are there for the job site, that the inventory is being done properly, that the wrapping is done properly. So this field supervisor position is really important. And then when you're billing, what are you billing for your pack outs, for your hours, right? So you're charging for supervisor rate and for technician rate. Who's that technician that you're billing for? I hear a lot of complaints that the programs are saying that you can only charge 2 hours per day for a supervisor. Do you know what their impression is of a supervisor? I would ask them, could it be that they think this is somebody showing up, going job to job to job with a clipboard and saying, good job, I need you to do this. And, they're just there as a quality control. So if that's their impression of supervisor, we need to re-educate them. When I had my business, with for my business liability insurance, it said in my policy, they clarified it with me that I had to have a working supervisor on every single job. That if I had 2 team members there, one of them was a supervisor. If I had 10 people on a job site, one was a supervisor. So identify what that field supervisor is doing. And then my other position, obviously technicians, but the way that I could pull my technician up to become a supervisor is I had a position called lead tech. So that when the field supervisor is on the job site and maybe they get called away, the adjuster calls, or they have to talk to the contents manager, or they have to deal with the insured one-on-one, now your team is there with no supervisor. So I would tell the lead tech, I'm going to be stepping away for half an hour. Please make sure that this living room gets packed out and that when you're finished, you're going to go into the kitchen. And that way there's always supervision of that team. If you go into McDonald's and ask for a hamburger, there's always going to be a manager on site. So when people show up at your job sites, they need to know who to talk to, and that's the supervisor. So as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this. So, just educate the adjusters and the homeowner, like what that supervisor role is. Okay.
Hey Barb, if I might jump in here, this might be a
Sure.
good time to just address some of the comments in the chat, and it looks like you're about to maybe get into this as well, but just you probably know what I'm about to say, just with TPAs not wanting to pay supervisor hours. So I know we're getting some comments in the chat. Maybe
Uh,
people looking for some advice on that challenge.
I don't have an easy answer for you. If you've agreed to the program pricing, and that includes 2 hours for the supervisor, it's like you already agreed to it, right? What can you do? For those of you that are working directly for the carriers, this is what we need to educate them on, because they don't know. It's like, I've had training, we did training all across Canada for a major franchise group. And we told them, please invite adjusters to come in and sit for free. They could come in for an hour, they can come in for 5 days. One of the adjuster, his 2 hangups were he wanted to total loss everything, and he refused to pay supervisor rates. Once he saw, like, he stayed all 5 days. So at the end, he said, I understand now. So it's a matter of educating them and, you know, um, that's, I think, being consistent with educating and, really calling that person the supervisor and giving them that responsibility. If you send out 2 supervisors to a job site, you have to assign which one is in charge. Otherwise, they're button heads. But somebody has to lead that team. So I wish I had a better answer. I think you have to really stick up for, defend your pricing, which, we are going to talk about. So when we are estimating, when we're given a pre-estimate, like when I write estimates for my clients, they're sending me their DocuSketch, their Matterport, their company CAM. It might be their Encircle Packout report. So they're giving me all that information. And then with the pack out, our billing is time and material. So that's labor and supplies. And I can guesstimate that just by looking at the DocuSketch or Matterport or walking the job site. And I can teach you how to do that. For cleaning, we're not charging time and material, we're charging by the line item. And I know the programs are saying that you can only charge, what, 15 minutes to inventory and pack a box. I would love to have them show us how they do that. So does that mean that we don't have time for photographing or making notes about the contents that we're packing into the box? And if we're not photographing and doing a thorough inventory, should they be signing off that they accept our inventory and that we're held harmless if anything that gets broken or lost? That's the question. And then the cleaning should be per line item. So that's per box or per item. So, we pack our small boxes, and then anything that doesn't fit in a small box goes into a medium. And then otherwise, everything should be protected. It's either in a box, it's wrapped in paper moving pads or quilted blankets, or it is in a plastic bag. As bare minimum, it should have dust protection. So the plastic bags are really helpful. And then we have our pack back, and that is also time and material. So if you think about your pack out, you're charging your labor and materials to pack. So you want to pack your boxes so that they're ready to be cleaned at your sink. So you want to pack according to the cleaning station. If you open up boxes at the sink and now there's books, there's stuffed animals, there's clothing that have to be carried off to another processing area, and then you have to try to, get those items back so that your inventory is correct. It's like herding cats. So we just want to pack our boxes in the field, either wet wash, dry processing, ultrasonics, maybe storage only. And, that way we're really organized. For estimating, we need to determine, I'm seeing this more and more, that they want to see how many supplies that we're allotting per room. And that's totally doable. And it's the same for cleaning too. And the reason I like it that way is because if the homeowner says, I don't want you to clean the contents of such and such a room, we can just delete that room from our estimate versus an adjuster telling us chop $5,000 off your bill, which is way more than, the actual cost. So I love for our estimating to be transparent and simple and consistent. If you have a consistent way of writing your estimates, then you can back them up. You can back them up with photographs, documentation, your notes, your reports, your inventory reports. So we want to be able to have the information that, we're solid on how we did the job. And then that's going to help us to be more confident to defend our estimates. Owners, managers, have you actually been out on a pack out? Have you been out there on a hot day, on a cold day? Have you been out there with your team with the supplies that are taken out? It's very enlightening, so you want to be able to know what these guys are dealing with. I think one thing that we need to focus on in our estimates is explaining that we parked at the bottom of the driveway and we had to, walk up. Once we got into the house, there was, steep stairs. The homeowner was watching us the whole time. You need to describe the challenges that you experience on these pack outs. Let's see. So another thing that was submitted was a question about how to start up as a MIT company. You've been doing water loss jobs. So let's look at your low-hanging fruit. What's your current book of business? Are you moving contents from one room to the garage unprotected? Everything should be inventoried, packed, and signed off to the homeowner that they accept the contents that you have packed. Because what happens when maybe somebody comes in, another family member opens up those boxes and takes things out, doesn't tell the insured, and now you get accused of theft or breakage. So I want you to hand those contents over to the insured with his signature. Also, if you're storing on site in storage containers, who has the key? Is it the homeowner and you? Who has access? So if you have access, you should not share that access. You should be the only one that has the key. The problem with that is that the containers can leak. There's humidity, there's mold issues. One of my clients didn't realize that a cat had gotten into the storage container and it got locked up. And when they went in there a few months later, a cat had exploded. So I mean, the craziest things happen. They get cut. Like we've had one client that the storage container was like up against the woods of the property, and they would drive past it every day, but someone had cut a hole in the back of it and had taken the contents out the back, and nobody knew because the lock was still secure on the pod. So there's just so much that can happen. So if it's not your choice to have an on-site storage container, I recommend that, if it's the adjuster who insists on on-site storage, then let the homeowner have full access. Have them sign off on the contents, that they received your contents. They have the key and full access to those contents. And then you come back for the pack back, and then you're packing back, what's there. So you're transferring that liability to them. Okay. Then another way that you can expand as a MIT company is all you're doing is pack out and storage. So if you pack out, that just means you're doing the inventory and packing, and then you're storing it. You may have a space to store it. You might rent a storage unit. Another thing you can do is textile processing. You can subcontract that out to a dry cleaner. You could have wash and fold service take care of the clothing. If you choose to do it in-house, and this is for any of you, you can have a commercial washer and dryer set up, and you can do your own wash and fold and send out the specialty items. This is a whole new profit center for restoration companies. Another thing is, or if you're a current restoration company, you do more than mitigation. Now, like what pack outs can you do for fire losses, for mold, for specialty jobs, trauma, vandalism. So if you're going to do fire losses and these other types of perils, you really need training, and you have to plan for this, and you have to have a processing area. So there's no way you can work out of a garage. You have to have bare minimum a triple bowl sink, and you need to have an assembly line process. Otherwise, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose content if you don't have a flow. You're going to just lose productivity. And then you need to have good storage, whether that is on site at the job site, at your facility, or off site. So getting into contents cleaning, don't wing it. Like just have the bare minimum. And I'm very conservative. I don't say, oh, you have to have like $100,000 of equipment to start up a contents division. If you have the space and you can afford a triple bowl sink and some stainless steel tables, you can do hand washing. That's what major companies are still doing. So I know the topic of this discussion was basics to best practices. And, regardless of where you're entering that line of business, if you're at the basics, you can still make money. You can do work well, but you have to have quality control. And then best practices, to me, that's having like a building with all the different capabilities and just being, I think it's more of scaled. You're doing a higher volume of work. So here's the most basic. This is a triple bowl sink with 2 drain boards, and we have an assembly line process. 3 people can work in this area. One of the huge time wasters is when we have one person cleaning one box of contents. So we really need people to be working together and have a system, have a flow. So we would have, remember I mentioned, if we pack our boxes according to the cleaning station, then what we want to do is have a rolling rack that we take to the vaults. We load that rack up with boxes that are only to be wet washed. So that could be 12 to 14 boxes, 12 to 16 boxes on that rack. And then we would have a drop down station like right here. And you would open up your box on this side and start unpacking it, unwrapping it, throw away the trash, the old wrapping materials, and boxes. So for the record, I don't encourage or recommend reusing our boxes. There's cross-contamination. There is, when we stack boxes in our vaults or on the truck, they can crush. So the integrity of the box is affected. And I know some of the programs only want to let you charge for one box. They only want to charge, have you charge. You're supposed to reuse the boxes, I guess. So the problem with that, like I said, they're dirty. They have other job labels on them. Or if you're writing on your boxes, it's going to have the wrong name on it. They just do not look professional. So anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. So we want to throw away our used packing materials, prep the contents for the sink. So our first sink can be for cleaning. The second one would be for rinsing. And then the third one, you could, if you need to sanitize. The other way you can do it is you can pre-soak, pre-clean in the first one, clean in the second one, and then rinse in the third. So you can see we have a hot and cold faucet here. And then we have a second faucet. And this is actually for deionized water. So the deionized water system is on 2 filters. So the cold water goes in, cold tap water goes in, the first filter goes into the second filter, and it comes out. So the deionized water system removes minerals from the water. So now the water wants to maintain a certain level of minerals. And so it's going to grab the minerals from the dirty contents. So it accentuates the cleaning power of your detergents and your water. When you rinse with deionized water, it dries streak-free. So now we're saving time that we don't have to rinse, or hand dry everything. You notice there's also a air compressor hose here too. So you can air wash the excess water off. So deionized water actually dries faster. And if you're air washing the excess water off first, then to dry is so much quicker. So we're going to repack our dry contents over here. And we're going to put our empty box on the drop down station. And the value of that is that you don't want the box on the floor and you're bending down to fill the box. And if that box was up on your regular countertop height, now you're trying to reach into it. So if you drop that box down just a foot, now it's easy access into the box. You can see what's in there. You can see what, how it's being packed. And then you would have an empty rolling cart here. And that's where your clean boxes would go onto that cart. So you're transferring them from one cart processing to the other cart. So that's our flow. And there's a book called 2 Second Lean, and I'll put it in the chat real quick. I can't remember the author's name, but his job was to inspect processing plant in Japan. And his job was to cut off 2 seconds off of any process that was done repeatedly. So if you think about all the things we do repeatedly on our jobs, we build boxes, we tape boxes, we take them away, we clean, we rinse, like everything that we do, if we're always thinking about how can I shave off 2 seconds of this process, because 2 seconds turn into minutes, it turn into hours. And so we can make more money if our production rate is good. So when we're only allowed to charge for, per box, um, then we have to really, be careful about our processes. When we're cleaning, if we're charging per box, do we want to clean 1 box per hour or 1.5 boxes per hour, maybe 2 boxes per hour? So if we can increase our productivity, that's where internally our profit margins go up. So we can't charge more per box and Xactimate. It's up to us behind the scenes to improve our productivity. And that's, teamwork. That's the importance of a supervisor. So if you have a team in your shop cleaning contents, you don't want them to be unsupervised. I've walked into a facility one time and they had this like 8 foot wide round table. They had about 6 ladies sitting on folding chairs, and each lady had a box of contents next to her. And it was her job to take the dirty contents out, clean them in front of her at her table, repack them, and put them into the clean box on the other side of her. So the contents were not being submersed. They weren't being rinsed with clear water. They were spraying like with spray bottles. So like they'd be spraying and then breathing all that aerosolized chemicals in. It was crazy and it was so counterproductive. So people tease me, they call me the chair Nazi because I don't want to ever see chairs in the production line. Everybody should be up on their feet, moving around, working well together. I really have never had a situation that I needed to sit to clean something. So that's what break time is for. Give them a nice break room that they can, kick their feet up. A client that we were just with in Long Island, they have a really nice break room. They have a TV, they have a fridge, microwave. It's separate from the office area. And so, those guys can, if they need to joke around and stuff, they can do it. They have that space to do it. Um, okay. So this is a company that one of our clients that, they used to do the 1 box per person process. And so we suggested that they set up their U-shaped station. So you can see it's not a huge space, but look at the efficiencies that they have. They can open up their boxes here, they can clean them, rinse them, and then repack. Here's their rolling cart that they would pull over when they need it. So this has improved their productivity really well. So we talked about packing the boxes properly in the field. So we're charging T&M usually to pack the boxes. So it doesn't take you any more time to pack the boxes according to the cleaning station. All that means is that only books are going into the box, only files are going into the box, only glassware or dishes. So you're separating the contents by categories and loading up those boxes according to the station. And then again, we need to increase our productivity when we're charging by the box. This is one of our clients, and they pack out in brown boxes and pack back in white boxes. So just by looking at the box color, they know if it's dirty or clean, which I love. And I love the fact that they're promoting their company logo versus the big box brands that sell boxes, right? So our typical small box is 1.5 cubic feet. It's 16 by 12 by 12. And it's the reason that we want to use smalls is if you think about OSHA standards, each of our employees needs to be able to carry 50 pounds. When the big medium boxes, which are double the size of a small, when they are packed with dishes, they are so heavy. They could exceed 50 pounds. And for myself, I mean, I think most companies have a lot of women working. I can hold a small box and I can keep it close to me and I can still see where I'm going over the box. If I have a medium-sized box, I know I look weird out here, huh? But I'm holding one corner with one hand and at the top, and then this hand is holding the bottom. My back is crooked and I can't really see where I'm going. And all that weight is held out in front of me. I can't hold it close. So ergonomically, we really want to stick with the small boxes. That's going to control the weight. It's going to control what we're cleaning at the sink. Things are not going to get broken. So the only time that we move up to a medium-sized box is when it doesn't fit into a small. And so you can see like the lighter weight items that are meant for the medium box. Lampshades. Somebody had asked about lampshades. And so we want to pack them properly in a medium. And then our large boxes are triple the volume of our small box. So we want to use these sparingly. If I were to take boxes out to a job site to get started, I recommend 100 small, maybe 20 medium. And if you really have to take larges, I would take 5. I really don't think you're going to use them much. So another question that we had was for an on-site approach and checklist. I love it. These are crucial. When in class, I teach a whole on-site approach of when we roll up to the job, what we should have ready, what we should do. I have checklists. So we do have our workshop July 15th and 16th here in Pittsburgh. So it's a 2-day workshop. Every attendee receives our open Word documents that you can plug in your own logo and you can change any verbiage that you need to. But it's so important to start a job with your own documentation. I know you have your contract to start the job. Do you have one specifically for content? I would highly recommend that. And then checklists. You should have a checklist of everything that should be done before you get to the job site, at the job site, when you're leaving the job site, and then afterwards, all your paperwork, your final invoice, stuff like that. And then somebody asked for averages for safety and productivity. And I don't like to put numbers out there because I think it can incriminate us. And I think it can cause more misunderstanding than not. So my averages, like for productivity, is one thing that's going to help you is not overpacking boxes. I guarantee that adjusters think that we overpack. So if they were to come into your shop right now, do you think that your boxes are underpacked or overpacked? And I have this challenge every time I go out to a new company and train with them. It's one of the first things I do is I open up boxes. And I would say about 90% of companies overpack. And if you think about why, our technicians are out in the field, they're hot, they're sweaty, they just want to be done, they want to be out. If guys are packing, they tend to overpack because they're strong and they think they can carry anything, right? So we really need to not overpack. Are we building a nest in the bottom of our boxes? Are we protecting the contents properly? So moving companies tend to use a lot of paper. they'll use one sheet of paper and they'll pack a mug. Everything is jam packed into the boxes, and they claim that they don't have a lot of breakage. And that's probably because there's not a lot of movement. Everything is so tight. But for us to pack like that, we would have breakage because when you think about how many times we handle these boxes. So a moving company, they pack the box, they put it on the truck, and then they deliver it. They handle it 3 times. So for us, we inventory, but then we're photographing it, we're packing it, it's on the truck, it comes to our shop, we're unloading it, putting it into a vault, and then it's time to clean it. So we take it out of the vault, we unpack it, we clean it. It might need deodorized, so it goes into the deodorizing room. Then it comes back out, and we do the final packing of it. It goes into the vault, and then for return, it has to come out of the vault onto the truck. So we are touching these boxes so many times. And those are all touch points for liability, for things to go wrong, right? For the box to drop, whatever. So we want to make sure that our packaging material is around the items. I don't want you to use one sheet of paper, pack everything in, and then you have a void at the top of your box that you just stuff paper into again. No, we want to, if you've been to my class, we use paper and bubble wrap, and we do wrap 2 or more items together. We make bundles. So we're not wasting time, but we are making sure that the packaging material is around the items. And then when we place them in the box, there really shouldn't be a void at the top. If there is, we can fill it, but I want the materials around the items. Okay, so we already talked about packing the boxes at the job site for efficiency at your shop. Anna, are there any comments or questions that
Yeah,
are
we're getting, well,
relate?
we've got lots of questions coming in during the chat and in the Q&A.
Okay.
Um, I know just for time's sake, we've maybe got about 30 minutes or so until we want to jump into the Encircle demo. Do you think this would be a good time to maybe, switch gears for a little bit, trying to answer some of these questions? I know we've had a few
Mhm.
sitting in
Yeah,
the
we can
for a
do
bit.
that. And then I still have more information too. So let's take some questions.
All right, so try to find some ones we can answer, you know, that aren't maybe too open-ended. I see we have a question from Austin about, how do you handle items that hold sentimental value to a customer, but are questionable or not total loss because of soot damage in terms of salvageability. And the customers are asking to try to save them as much as possible.
Um, we could for sentimental items that are not going to respond 100%. In the new content standard, we are using a term called preservable. And so we're attempting to clean it. We're getting it as clean as we possibly can. But like we had we had a cedar trunk, a cedar chest that was sentimental, and you could see the one corner was singed. And so we cleaned it the best we could. We let the homeowner know ahead of time there's no way we could repair the singeing. And she says, I don't care, I just want it back. So we cleaned it. And when we presented it to her, she was really impressed. Like we got the watermarks off of it, everything. And then we had her sign a sheet that said that she would accept this as is. And basically, I just wanted to be held harmless. You not get accused that we didn't fully restore it. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate that, Barb. We had another question around, how does quality control work, in your assembly line process that you were kind of describing earlier?
If the person who's doing the final wrapping and packing, they're the ones that really should be the quality control person. So that's going to be somebody like if you have 3 people working together and one of them is the supervisor can still be unwrapping or washing, but that supervisor is probably the one that should be doing the final. wrapping and packing into the box.
Right. I'm a little I'm a little worried to wait, wade into some of the pricing and estimating questions a little early. I don't know if you want to get into that just yet. I know there are lots. That's probably the bulk of the questions in the chat
Okay.
now. Um, do we want to try to dive into that down the line, or because I know you have some more to share as well?
Yeah, I'll scroll through here real quick.
Just a kind of a lot of, I think this common objections that or questions around common questions around objections that.
I see one about blankets. So I know that a lot of carriers are saying they won't pay for the quilted moving blankets. Um, so I recommend wrapping everything in the paper blankets, paper moving pads. If you go to Uline and just search for paper moving pads, you'll find them. And that is when you are billing for pads in Xactimate, the code is CPS PAD. That is for a single use moving pad. So if everything is wrapped in those, that's like the minimal protection that is going to protect from, scratches and stuff. And by using those, like the contents are going to fit through the doorways. They're not going to get banged up. And then I recommend using the moving blankets to stack inside the truck and inside of your vaults. So I've gotten some negative feedback on my process. Um, However, if we're trying to use moving blankets on everything, think about it. The moving blankets are against soot, mold, all that stuff. So then now are you washing those blankets before you use them the next time? Or are you taking contaminated blankets to future jobs? What's the cost involved to keep the quilted blankets? You have to store them. They take up so much more space in the truck to get them to the job site. They they're they're bulky, so they're bigger than the paper pad. So like a paper pad will probably take 2 pads per chair versus one quilted moving blanket per chair, right? So we have our chairs wrapped in a single use paper pad or one or two of them, and that's disposable. So, all that contamination is being thrown away. Now, with your moving blankets that are contaminated, I have a client, they have thousands of moving blankets. I mean, it's just out of control. They're in big piles waiting to go through their washing machines. They're so backlogged on their moving blankets, it's crazy. So now the moving blankets are in storage for 6 months. So that requires you to have a huge amount of moving blankets if that's all you're using. The paper pads, they either come in boxes, like short boxes, flat, or they come in bundles. And so they're real easy to put onto the truck and to wrap the furniture with them too. So I'm encouraging more paper pad usage and just using your moving blankets against the clean stretch wrap that you secured the paper pads with. Now that's against clean surfaces and they're not going to get contaminated so quickly. And as we go on, I do have some photos of them. Anything else?
We have lots else. I think the question is just around time, right? I know there's a lot of questions around, challenges within, you know, getting paid, insurers and things like that. I think perhaps you had a plan to speak to that a little bit. I know, and then some like very kind of one-off questions, right, around,
Okay.
like for
Yeah,
example, like does your supervisor monitor both in-house cleaning and pack out? Maybe that's one that you can answer pretty quickly for us.
yeah, they should. Even if there's multiple people in the same position, everything should be supervised.
Gotcha, for sure. And I saw a lot of comments earlier in the chat when you asked the attendees who's looking at what the role is kind of managing the job. I saw lots of lots of folks saying it was a supervisor
Great.
what they're using. So
That makes my heart happy.
in line
Okay.
with your recommendations. Um, okay, let's see. I love that you guys are keeping the chat very busy in the Q&A,
Yeah,
but
I see that.
let's see what type here's one that we could maybe answer fairly quickly too, hopefully. So what type of inventory do you recommend to be done on a pack out where no contents cleaning is to be conducted?
I still recommend a full inventory, that we inventory everything going into the box, and that like homeowners have what the movers call PBO containers. So those are the plastic containers in the attic and basement and garage that just loaded with, maybe Christmas ornaments or who knows what's in there, right? I recommend inventorying everything in there and packing them in our own boxes so that when we stack, that our boxes are, uniform of the way that we pack them. I have some photos here of him properly packed. I'll show you what I mean. Let me just zip through here. Oh no, hold on, I went too fast. Um, I knocked myself off. Let me share again. Sorry about that.
No worries. For judgment-free zone here. We've all
Thank
probably been
you.
here.
Am I sharing again?
Yep.
Okay. You know what? I'm not sure. I did it again. Um, okay, let me see. Okay, yeah, I don't have them in here, but I will show you this. Let me share again. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about for wrapping the furniture and paper pads. You can see everything's secure and it is padded. And then when this goes onto the truck, then you would just use the moving blankets in between. Um, as far as like those PBO containers, um, we just want to do inventory of everything that we're relocating as much as possible because like I was doing a pack out with a company at their facility, and they had packed like whatever the homeowner had, they wrapped the plastic container in stretch wrap. And then when it got onto the truck and into storage, the plastic container cracked. And then we unpacked it all and put it into boxes. And there were diamond earrings and gold chains in with kids' hand drawn, coloring pages. So that's the liability that you take when you don't inventory everything. So we took that gold jewelry out, gave it to the manager. He put it in his office and he called the insured and said, "Hey, we came across some gold jewelry." So we just don't want you guys to take on any unnecessary liability.
Right on. Well, I know you had some stuff you had intended to share, Barb. I don't want to veer you too far off track.
Okay.
I'd say probably around maybe the 2:30 at the latest 2:40 mark. We probably want to switch to the last segment of the webinar, which was going to be just a quick Encircle demo.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Yeah, I don't have much more to go, so it's good. Um, a specific question that came up was about particle board furniture. So if it's water damaged, it's contaminated, and the integrity of the particle board is compromised. Barring it being wet, when you move it and try to take it apart, it could literally fall apart because there's not even like real screws. It's twisty parts and things are just falling apart. So we have in our non-transportable sheet that we give to the homeowner, it says right on there, particle board furniture, that we don't transport it. So it either has to stay on site or we recommend that it's a total loss. So as far as exceptions, like I have IKEA furniture here that I've had for 20 years. I took it all the way across the country to California and back to Pittsburgh, and it's still in awesome shape. It's indestructible, right? But then you have other furniture that is going to fall apart just looking at it. So you can make the exception if somebody has something that's well built that happens to be particle board furniture. But by having it in your onboarding information with the client that you don't pack it out, you're protected. And then it's easier for the technicians too. They can just say, hey, it's company policy that we don't pack out particle board furniture. And then somebody asked about non-salvage contents and inventory. So one of the things we always want to make sure of is get approval in writing from the carrier, that they are going to pay you to do the inventory. I don't know if you ever have Enservio services come on site. I will say that if there's a third party inventory service, I recommend that your contents manager is the one who sorts and determines what is non-salvageable, because the third parties don't understand your cleaning abilities, right? So you need to be the one to decide what's restorable or not. So just find out from the very beginning of the job what the adjuster's expectations are for total loss. And then if they indicate that it's okay to start filling up the dumpster right away, then you want to have an ongoing report. When you're using Encircle, you're just listing things as total loss. You have the photographs. Well, then you want to get signatures too. And then ask the adjuster what type of non-salvageable report do they want. Are they going to provide you with an Excel spreadsheet that you fill out and then the homeowner fills out more details, or will they accept your Encircle report? And then get in writing approval to dispose. And you want that from the carrier. I just had a client that did a pack out of a store, and they inventoried over 5,000 pieces of clothing and shoes. The adjuster told them, well, they held on to it for a month or so. And then the adjuster told them verbally on the phone that it was okay to dispose of everything. Well, now that it's time for them to get paid, the carrier is saying, where are the total loss items? We need to see them. So, just always make sure that that you have it in writing or in a text, if they're giving you authorization to dispose. And then for storage, I have clients in New York and New Jersey that they have to keep all the total loss contents on site all through the demolition, the reconstruction. They literally have mounds of total loss items covered with plastic sheeting, either inside the house, or if there's space for an on-site storage unit, it's going out there, and they have to hold on to it until the job is finished and they get final authorization to dispose of it. Someone asked about SOPs to document contents. Just quickly, just know that the inventory taker sets the pace of the pack out. If it's not inventoried, you can't pack it. So the inventory taker would get started immediately in the morning, and they would inventory large contents that have nothing in them or on them. So that's chairs, tables, whatever. They would inventory the item in its original position, photograph it from all the different angles, make the label, leave the label on the item, not attached. And then the technicians or the runners come, and then they wrap, they pack, they put the label on the outside of the packaging material. They take the items to a holding area at the house or out to the truck. And now this opens up space in each room. Then the inventory taker is doing that room by room by room. They circle back to one of the rooms where they had opened up space. And now they're going to set up their packing station so that they can start packing boxes. So it's the technician's role to always keep the inventory person in position. You don't want the inventory people walking away, walking around the house. They need to be in position doing their inventory because it sets the whole pace of the job. And then, so the technicians would bring them empty boxes, bring them paper, bubble wrap. They can seal the box and take the box away. So you have a whole process going, a whole system. So here's our packing station. So we have an adjustable height table. You notice I'm standing up straight. So this table is 37 inches high, and ergonomically it's comfortable versus a banquet height table, which is too low. And then your back is going to get really tired. And we have a makeshift drop down station. It's just a packed box that we put our empty box on top of. And I'm using this elasticized table cover. And then we have our stack of paper, a tabletop tape dispenser. Underneath the table, I have snapped off 1-foot sections of bubble wrap and 2-foot sections. So I don't recommend having this big roll of bubble wrap in your packing station near the artwork that you're packing, near the dishes. So this is all done ahead of time. The runners, the technicians can prep this bubble wrap and keep bringing it to the inventory takers that are packing the contents. So photos are super important, documentation, right? So we want to photograph the items in their original position, photograph the insides of drawers, doors, and cabinets, document pre-existing conditions. Don't limit your photos to damage that your technicians see, because they're not going to see everything. They're distracted, they're hot, they're in a hurry. So just have them take photos. They're real quick and they're free. Show the level of contamination, document the equipment usage and your workers working on site in gear. One of my clients called me from the wildfires that we did, and he said, Barb, do you have photos of you guys working in the house? I said, yeah, why? He says, because the homeowner denied that you cleaned his house and he doesn't want to pay. And so we had photos of us with the blinds up and the vacuum cleaners, like we were in there cleaning. So we recommend taking beginning of day photos, and then during the day as you're working, and then before you leave the house, take end of day photos to show how you left the job. And then you can use your photos for the pack back too. The photos that are useless are taking photos of the top of the box and looking down, and you can see the wrapped contents, but you can't see what they are. The outside of a packed box, or wrapped furniture, or up close. So, we get photos, because I write estimates all the time for clients. So the technicians will take a photo. It'll be maybe a jar. Well, if it's up close, I can't tell if it's 3 inches tall or if it's 10 inches tall. And it makes a difference with how contents are going to be packed. And then somebody asked about efficiencies. We just want to be prepped for our jobs. We want to have pack out kits ready. We want to have our truck stocked. At the job site, we're setting up our staging area. We have a holding area for our contents that are wrapped already. We're protecting the floors. This is our supplies for our wrapping furniture. We've got our paper pads, some quilted blankets, moving straps, stretch wrap, tape gun. And then for packing of contents, the technicians have packed boxes and they're just ready to go. There's 1-foot squares of bubble wrap, 2-foot squares, our paper, our boxes, and then our pack out kit. So let's see. Yeah, our pack out kit would have our tape guns and everything. So if you've been to my training, I like to wear a triple pocket apron, like a waiter's apron. and I keep my iPhone in there, my markers, my pens, so that I have everything on me that I need. And then at my pack out table, I'll have my pack out kit so that I have those supplies handy too. We talked about the particle board. Somebody asked about breakage, accountability. So there's something called a contingency fund that you can put, the owner of the company can create a separate banking account and put $50, $100 into that account per job. That's the technician's bank account. At the end of the year, if there's any money in it, then that could be for bonuses, maybe a company party, or you're donating to a charity. And anything that gets broken would get paid for out of that account. So if I'm the clumsy one and you see me handling this big crystal vase and you're like, I know she's going to break it, what are you going to do? You're going to come over and help me, right? Or if you see me struggling moving a piece of furniture, you don't want me breaking a leg off of the furniture. You're going to come help me. So that's how we get team accountability. Um, Somebody asked about flower arrangements. So if we have to decide if they're salvageable or not, if you have an ultrasonic machine, if you can hand wash them, or if you have access to a florist, you might be able to process floral arrangements. We did a house in the wildfires in California, and the lady had just redid her whole interior decorating and spent $20,000 on her floral arrangements. So we were going to clean them. And there's a way of doing it. But the most important thing is, how do you pack them safely? And I know this isn't a flower arrangement, but this proves the point, is that like this was a crystal chandelier, or what do you call these? Tiffany chandelier. And so first, at our workstation, we want to create like a nest for it. And we did that with bubble wrap. So this is a concave lampshade, right? So if we were to just set it upside down on that table, it's going to wobble and break. And then we're going to carefully clean it. And this is the point I want to show you, is that we want to stabilize the item in the box. So what we did was we created a nest in the bottom of the box. And you would do this for your vase that has the flowers coming off the top. So we stabilize it, and you're doing that. You're making noodles with bubble wrap. So I'll take a 3-foot section of bubble wrap, I'll roll it up into a noodle, and then I'll kind of like just put it in a circle, like here. So that goes in the bottom of the box, and that is the nest. And then we tear apart a box into 4 panels, and we fold those up into posts. So the posts go into the 4 corners of the box, and then your item, like your flower arrangement base, would be nestled in the bottom and supported. It's not going to move around. And then the flowers are going to come up, but these posts are going to keep the top of the box from crushing. So I hope you can visualize that. But for cleaning flower arrangements, you would take photos all the way around, top and bottom, sides, take all the flowers out. You can wash those in the ultrasonic or hand wash them. And then you would get fresh foam and Spanish moss and put it all back together again. And I know I'm oversimplifying. If you don't have anybody in your company to put it all back together again, then you call a florist and send them the photographs along with the vase and all the stems, and they will rebuild it. So that's obviously a specialty service, and you're going to charge for that. But I don't like to say that we don't do things, like people ask me, what do you do if you have a $20,000 vase? And it's like, I'm just going to be really careful about it. I can still pack it. So I'd rather you find out the right way of doing something learning how to do it and then offering that service. And that could be for chandeliers. There's just so many specialty items that you might decide you can do some of them. Taxidermy items. If the taxidermy is not singed, it's pretty easy to clean them in reality. So if you have any jobs, like if you get documents or taxidermy or chandeliers and you're not sure what to do with them or how to do it, call me. Send me a text. Say, hey, Barb, we have this on our job. What do you recommend? Should we try it? I'll call, like we'll talk through it. I'll ask you questions and we'll just decide if it's something that you're going to do, or I'll help you find a specialty service provider that can do it for you guys. So that takes us to our software and some of the specific questions. This is Anna's going to participate in this. They're asking about software, inventory, and box tracking.
Yes, well, obviously I may be a little biased on the software front. And we're gonna run a demo of the Encircle app pretty quick, so if you want to stick around and see that. I mean, there's a number of tools out there available, obviously, right? And Barb, you're probably familiar with most, if not all of them, I would bet. I would say, again, this is my Encircle bias speaking, so forgive me, but I would probably want to prioritize, inventory tools that are photo-centric, that allow for quickly snapping as many photos as you need, big part of the documentation process, allow for some way of, tracking a pack out, assigning, a box label or something along those lines. Um, those are, two of the big ones, that come like jump out to me immediately as well. And then get you an app that does good reports. So uh, and that's the Encircle app. I saw a few people in the chat asking. So I know with the Encircle tool, like one of the big draws of our system is going to be on the reporting side, just the ability to not have to take up any extra time generating the report. So you've already, done the time consuming part of being at the job, packing everything out, doing the documentation, right? That's all a lot of legwork that you will have already put in. You don't want the reporting aspect to cost you any more time. So finding a tool that is going to be able to get you reports really quickly and easy, I think is probably going to be a big priority, I would think, for, evaluating any kind of software tool. And that would be kind of my off the cuff, 2 cents on, looking for a contents software. And
I totally agree. It's very easy to work with. A lot of my clients have Encircle, they love it. And there's so many other features too that they're using in the rest of their company. So it's great.
yeah, so if you can bring a contents tool into the fold without tacking on an extra, few $1,000s, whatever it might be. So if you have your mitigation documentation tool and you don't want to spend an extra few grand on a contents tool, then, try to bring it all under one place.
Mhm.
Um, like with a tool like Encircle. That said, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into our demo of the Encircle system here. So allow me to get my phone on the screen really quick. And I'm going to start on the field side because that's really where, most of the action is going to happen in the Encircle app. So we'll go through, steps for doing an inventory, right? And then I'll show you as well, putting together reports. Um, so I've got my sample claim here. Let's just pop open a room. It's actually going to the living room. All right. And so, Barb, feel free to correct me on this, but I'm guessing at the very least you probably also want to get, room overview to start.
Yeah,
Um,
four corners would be great. Or
yeah.
is yours a 360?
Well, we do support 360 now, so if you have a Ricoh 360 camera, you can now do those photos in the app. If you have another 360 camera, you can bring those in. That's just always a good idea just to get the context before you start moving anything around. Can also be really helpful when you go to reset stuff later on too. So that's just kind of our general recommendations too, is to start with overview photo, video, something along those lines, 360, just to kind of get that initial overview done before you start moving stuff. If you don't have a 360 camera, you don't plan to use 360 photos, you can always just grab, like Barb said, um, just start with the four corners kind of thing, right? Just get yourself a good overview. Um, if you want to use video, that's available to you in the Encircle app as well. So lots of good, options for establishing that room overview beforehand. And then once you're ready to start doing your item inventory, you're just going to use that little plus button there at the bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to choose Add Contents, and it's going to open up my contents photo or camera. So I'm going to start with a picture, so snap a photo of my first item. All right, and then immediately you're going to get some options if you want to add some extra details. I might pop into here under Edit Details and at least provide an item description, speech to text for this too. Hard drive. All right, so a disposition is also highly recommended. Right, so a disposition is kind of just our term for, I don't know, maybe like a status, right, indicating what you're doing with this item. You can customize this list in the Encircle web app, so you can, make sure that this is suited to your org. So for your items, we'll select, a disposition, just kind of categorize the item. And then if you're doing pack out, you also are going to want to assign a box name or, tag or something along those lines. And I know Barb has a recommended labeling system. She affixes, a sticker to the outside of each box that has, a box number that she's generating on site. So highly recommend you stick to some kind of system like that. And essentially you're going to match that physical label to an Encircle one. So whatever your box number is, if needed, you could also put a prefix in front of the box number here in Encircle, but I think best practice is just to kind of match it to the label that's affixed to the box. And as Barb mentioned earlier, we don't like to see the writing on the box, right? We want a proper label. And so I think, Barb, do you offer your labels to your clients? I would assume.
Yes, actually, they're included with all of our workshops.
Yeah.
Oh, my camera's not working that great right now.
It's just a little blurred, but
Oh, yeah, we do. We offer the labels.
okay, good to know. Um, so hit Barb up for that, obviously. And so here I'm gonna, time I set a box, I'm gonna designate a box type. This is also a customizable list in the Encircle app, and you can, kind of match this to how you charge out. You can see I've got options for, different box sizes. For larger items, I've also seen people use a category, called tag, for example, right? So make sure you customize this list in the web app. We'll just call this a medium box for now. You have some other fields that you can fill out here as needed, right? Serial number photo is always good for like a high-end or electronic item or something along those lines. But I'm going to go ahead and save this item. And then if you are wanting to document, additional photos, like pre-existing conditions, like Barb was mentioning, just getting all of those conditions, even the ones that maybe aren't the visible damage, right? So using notes is going to be the fastest way to do that in Encircle. So I'll just tap that notes button there at the bottom of the screen. I'll use a photo note. And if you want to speed this up a little bit in the app, you can also set up some note templates for this. So I've got a note template. I'm now going to have to change it to pre-existing conditions because I've learned from Barb's advice that I should probably not just call it pre-existing damage, right? And so you can, if if you have text that you want to capture every time, you can, put some pre-filled text in there if you want. I'm not going to. I'll just go right to the photos. I think this is probably the most important part. And then just snap your extra pictures. This is where you can add as many extra pictures for your item as you needed, is with the note. So you kind of get like one profile picture for the item in Encircle, and then any extra photos that you want to add, capture them in a note. You could also add as well. So I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize this, but if there was maybe something that was a little bit harder to, convey just in with a photo or something along those lines, you could also add a video to your note. That might be useful on like a really special item, something really unique with, very unique conditions that might need some extra explanation. All right, so that's my first item done. And then you just want to move to your next item. So you just want to kind of like repeat this process. Then the idea is to have like a repetitious process. It's kind of like snap a photo, enter a label, next, basically. That's like the basic bones of the process in the Encircle system. So I'll add my next item, snap my photo, and then a feature that I recommend that our users probably should turn on, we call it C disposition. It's like basically a shortcut label in the web app that just carries forward your box label and your disposition each concurrent item. So that'll save you a little bit of time, in the field. Instead of having to stop and designate this on each item, you can carry it forward, and then when you start a new box, you can simply, just enter a new box name, right? So I'll go to my next item, and let's say I wanted to start a new box. Snap my item photo. I can just tap the little box icon here. I can start my new box. I'll assign my new box a box type, right? And click add. And then we'll do like a larger item, for example. So we'll say like this sofa. Um, I'm not going to put that in a box, of course, so I might start a new box, and I might call it like tag one. Barb, if you have maybe a better suggestion, feel free.
Um, uh, because you guys don't use the labels, because I know like another company uses small labels for boxes and large labels for contents. I would even it's just an inventory number. Unless you, is there a reason why you guys need to know that it's a tagged item?
I
Is
think
there
it's just
a-
because we have the box paradigm in our app right now. It's just kind of that was my recommendation that from, talking to a few users is like, how do I know that I'm going to do a charge out later. How do I document this somehow? And
okay.
some people were telling me that for their tags, they had a specific set price, but you know,
Think
that's
I would
me as a non-expert. Can you probably speak better to me?
I think if you like to have the tag, I would just do tag, but then keep the consecutive numbers of the labels. And
Mhm.
so then the tag would be indicated in the software, and it would be obvious that the label's on a piece of furniture.
Right.
So that would be my only suggestion.
Okay. No, that's a good one. I know that's kind of like an open question for a lot of Encircle users right now. Is like, how do we work within this kind of like box paradigm? So we're kind of looking into some improvements we can do around there as well.
So like the way it says tag number one, like if your next inventory number was like 459, could you call it right now tag 459?
Certainly, you could certainly do that. And then the reason I think for just attaching some kind of, I want to say, I know we use the word box, but you don't have to think of a box as a box. The only reason I say that you should probably capture like a tag number, for example, is later on if you are using our charge out report, it'll put a tally. Oh, one tag item
Oh, okay.
for your charge out later. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the best practice or the recommended practice at this time in the app that we've kind of found for that. But if we have users of the app online that are doing it differently to better effect, let me know in the chat. And so that's like generally your process with the Encircle inventory, right? As I said, it's like very photo centric. So snap, label, box, snap, label, box, right? You're trying to get into a muscle memory as much as you can, and you're trying to reduce that speed. As Barb said, the inventory person sets the pace for the job, right? So as much, as much as you can get the muscle memory down in the app and, snap your photos quickly, you know, add a label quick, use the shortcut for the box number and disposition. Um, that will cut down your inventory time in the field ideally. And then once we're done kind of creating our inventory, we'll just click done. So I've got a little inventory going on my mobile app. This stuff does populate back to the web app well. So that's always a we like to highlight on these demos is provided an internet connection, this stuff is going to populate back in the web app right away. So it's going to get back to your office teams. So there's really no delay in terms of if you need to come in here and make some edits to this stuff, if you need to go ahead and start pulling reports, right? So the idea is to get this information to the field team right away. Right. So as an office staff, you can collaborate with your field teams too on these inventory lists if you need to. I don't know, Barb, if you have an opinion on is it better to get the labels in the field or is it better to have everything documented as much as possible with labels and any other fields? Do you try to capture that on site as much as you can, or do you find that you or your clients come into the web app much to edit this stuff?
Yeah, I think getting like a photo of the model number and stuff is important at the job site.
Hmm.
And, just keeping it really simple at the job site. And then if anything needs to be done at the shop, in a controlled environment at your desk. And I think that's where you can do the more detail if it's needed.
Hmm. Right on. Okay. That trend I've heard from users as well.
So,
And then we do have some pricing tools in here. I don't know. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, we do have some pricing tools available in our app. I know that's not necessarily top of mind for a lot of the restores I've talked to so far. However, I have heard a few shops that have, ventured into this a little bit just to, I don't know, provide that extra service to their clients. Um, so if that is, of interest to you, just know that you can come in here into the Encircle app and you can actually find like replacement prices on items. If that's a tool that you need at your disposal, we have that in the app. We have a Google Chrome extension on the web app, and then we also have that capability in the mobile app as well. Right. And so I think the thing that I would really like to highlight, though, at this point is our reports. So this is a big part of the equation for our users. And like I was saying earlier, um, once your team has taken the time to do the inventory in the field and, you know, taken the time to document the the pack out as well, you want it to be dead easy to generate a report. You don't have to take extra time yet, in the office or wherever to compile a report. So that's the beauty of having a digital inventory system. And the nice part about Encircle is the reporting function. So I'll show you how easy this is to do in the app. I'll do it on the web app first, and then if you guys want, I'll show you on the mobile app too. So you just come in here, you click generate report. Generally, it's going to be an Excel report type, although you can also do like a PDF photo sheet to supplement. If you're doing just like a general inventory, you could choose all of your items from the job, which is going to be the case for, just doing your contents listing. If you're going to do a non-restorable list or a schedule of loss, you can also run this report by disposition and then just choose like your non-restorable items. Right? So I'll just do all items. And then truly all you have to do is put a title for the report, right? So whatever your title is going to be, it should be better than mine. And then just pick from a template. If any of Encircle users are on the call, you're probably like, that's a lot of templates that I don't see in my app. And that's just because this is my demo environment. So we have our detailed spreadsheet, which is our kind of standard inventory list. We have our schedule of loss report. And then we have a box summary, which is kind of your charge out report. I'm going to show you each of these here momentarily. And then down here is just a list of like specific carrier reports. So we've built out some like schedules of loss and uh, reports based on specific carriers' requirements. So if you're an Encircle user and you've never seen these before and you're spotting some carriers reports in here that you'd like to have access to, just let us know. Reach out to like success@encircleapp.com because we can turn these on for you at no extra cost. Right. And then
Oh,
so
that's great.
yeah. So once you put your title, pick your report template, then all you need to do is just click generate report. Super easy, right? And it's virtually the same process in the mobile app. You click generate report, put a title, pick your template, and click save. So you're not spending extra time putting together your spreadsheet. This one's not the best example because I just hastily put together my inventory. So I'll show you some better examples. All right, this is something maybe more likely you use in real life on the job. So this is our detailed spreadsheet, which is kind of our generic inventory. So we've got item photos embedded in the report, which is nice. You can just click on these and it'll open up the item photo, a separate tab. And then everything else that you've captured on the item shows up in here as well. So the room of origin, your box number, uh, the item descriptions, and any extra details, right? We'll also even put in, if you have any notes, we'll bring in the text of the notes too, right? So if you have serial number photos and so on, this all shows up. There's a very nice, like tidy inventory that you can share digitally with people very quickly. Like you can generate this on the field and get it in your client's hands before you even leave the job site, right? So that's a general inventory. This is our schedule of loss. So it's going to take your non-restorable items, it's going to break them down by room and insert, the applicable columns that your adjuster might use to go on and price these items. So this is a good report to hand over to really wily adjusters. You're putting it into a format basically that they can just work right out of if they would like to. So this is, I think, a really powerful, non-restorable report that will, earn you some goodwill with the adjusters. And then we've got a PDF. So I mentioned that you can also generate PDF reports. So some of our users will supplement these Excel sheets with a photo sheet in the form of a PDF. This is just going to pull in all those extra photos. So if you took extra photos of, pre-existing conditions or, just any extra pictures you took of the items, those all appear here. Pricing will show up in here too. So it's just a different format. It's just, more pages than a spreadsheet. So I found that people use this kind of more supplementally. It's kind of their main two that our users stick to is like our detailed spreadsheet and our schedule of loss. And then I mentioned our charge out report as well. So when I was talking about, making sure each item is assigned maybe a box or a tag or something along those lines. The reason for that was just it does kind of end up showing up in our box summary report here. So the app counts as you go along, how many medium boxes, how many bags, how many, tagged items do you have and mattress boxes and so on. So we keep a running total of that in the app to try to help you out with your charge outs later on when you get ready to bill.
And one question that I've gotten is like if they marry two small boxes together, should
Mhm.
they list it as two smalls for that item or just kind of convert it to a medium?
I would do it based on how you bill. So if you're going to build
Okay.
it as a medium box, then list it as a medium box. And if you're going to bill it as two small boxes, well, actually, you know what? It's only going to count one time. So
Yeah.
maybe you should do it as a medium box, at least in Encircle.
Okay.
I don't know, but I don't know. Does that sound right to you, Barb?
I like that because, like you said, if it's how you're going to bill for it, it's like the cost of the two smalls might be a little bit more than the cost of a medium-sized box, but you're charging to clean a medium-sized box. And so I think it all washes out in the end and it's simpler, you know.
Mm-hmm. And then you can also put in your own custom tick sheets. I saw some comments in the chat and the Q&A about that. Um, so if you're unaware of this in the Encircle app, we've done this for lots of our users, is we've loaded their own tick sheets and scope sheets, consumables lists into the Encircle app as well, so that they can fill it out, digitally on the job.
Nice.
Um, I forget which ones of these are which, so I'll just pull up a random one and hope that it's a good example. This is not really a contents tick sheet, so forgive me for that. But I'm just trying to basically convey that we can make this a very interactive sheet for you. So it can come with drop downs and variables and quantities and things like that. Um, and probably I should show you this. It'd be better to show you this on the mobile app because it's more often done in the mobile app. Right, so we can digitize your tick sheets as well if you prefer to kind of track it that way. Maybe I'll pull one up on my phone here and show you. And while we're at it, I'll just mention in case you are unaware, you can also digitize your forms. So any contents forms, contracts as well. You can put those into the app so you can get your signatures digitally. So when you're getting your, disposal authorizations and whatnot, you can do that on site in the app, or you can text or email a copy of these forms to your clients for them to sign off as too. So that's always an option. So just to hopefully give you a sense of like how an interactive tick sheet would look and feel in the app, um, it's just it will prompt your teams for everything that they need. This was not the best example because it didn't have too many drop downs and whatnot. Let's go back into this one. Right, so it will prompt your field people for the information that it needs. So you can just come in here and click, like add, for example. Again, these are all mitigation items. So, well, I guess we have a few contents ones in here. But that's the idea. So you can come in here, you can add items to your form, and then you can customize these drop downs and whatnot. So these can be whatever, makes sense for your tick sheet. They can be multiple choice, they can be, check boxes basically, they can be quantities and variables of all kinds. So I just wanted to show that as a possibility in the app for those that maybe not aware. And that was a very fast demo. So we're gonna let's take a look at this Q&A.
Okay. I see one question is what is a CR? And that's a certified restorer. It's a designation through Restoration Industry Association. And it requires several courses and passing tests and things like that. So they've really expanded it. And if you're gonna, if you really want to stay and grow in the industry, I would recommend it.
Okay, here we go.
How do you determine if full PPE is required during a pack out? That's going to be based on the contamination level, like what's present. So if you do a Google search for Cliff Zlotnick, is soot a health hazard? He wrote an article about this. So, if air quality is an issue, then I would definitely recommend PPE. And then let's see. Oh, this is probably for you, Anna. How do you digitize your personal forms?
You just send them to us. So, if you already have like an account rep within Circle, just, send them like a PDF or Word copy of your forms. If you're not within Circle yet, you can just go to our website and inquire there. I'm assuming that question was from an Encircle user. So, uh, send it to your rep if you know who your rep is. Otherwise, send it to forms@encircleapp.com. Is probably the best email for that. We'll work with you to digitize them, make sure that you're happy with them, as we deploy them. And yeah, that's a pretty simple process. Just send us your forms.
Someone asked you, could you show how to add a video inside a photo note?
Yes. So get my app back up on the screen. All right, so I'm gonna come in here on my item. So you'll need to have your item photo done first, and then you click the notes function. Just choose photo note, and then use the camera option here. Oops. And then just well, where did the video option go? Okay, maybe I misspoke about that. We did used to have I thought we did have the video functionality here. Let me double check, fact check myself on that. Um, so I'm not seeing that option here in the notes function. Maybe I might recommend just adding it. And I suppose you can add it to, you can always add a room note, which is not necessarily going to be attached to the item, but you'll find a video mode in the camera. So I'm going to talk to our content or our product team about getting video mode in the notes function for contents, because that seems like either that's a bug or just maybe a gap since we kind of redid our notes UI.
Okay, I see a recent one for me. Would you recommend taking a group of photo of contents or individuals going into a box? So I like to take, like if there's plates, this is for Diana. Like for example, if there's a stack of plates, we can set like 4 to 6 plates out and take a photo of them, flip them over. We just want to show whether or not there was any damage. So I'll do a group photo of the contents and then I'll still kind of break them down and take individual photos of an item if I feel like it's a special item or if it might have damage to it. So I think it's a blend of photos. And the group photo would be taken, I'll take a photo of the contents on the shelf or wherever they were on the shelf or on the countertop, show where I found them and how they were stored. Because sometimes people just stack things and things, get scratched or broken that way, but they try to kind of blame it on us. And so if we have those kind of photographs, it helps to protect us.
Okay.
Um, okay, Q&A. So there's one for will Encircle work with codes
Well, Encircle.
eventually, like contents track. So I guess like with Xactimate codes.
That's a good question. I would probably direct that to our product team. If you want, whoever asked that, would you mind shooting me an email with that question so that I can follow up with our product team for you? I'm just gonna put my email in the chat.
And then are there any item recognition technology?
Well, We're currently, conducting research on that, looking at, pulling that into the app. Although there is something that you can do today, which I neglected to mention. Um, this is in the web app, and if there's somebody out there that has figured this out on the phone too, maybe you can let me know. Um, and this is just a Google thing. This is not really an Encircle thing. If you right click on a photo, you can always use Google Lens to search it. All right, I may have an extension installed on my browser that's like blocking this, or maybe I just need to open up the picture this way. There we go. So make sure you open up the item photo. Eh, it's not working on my browser for some reason. But I have been able to use this in the past. I know our users do it too. So Google Lens can also help with this as well. It's just kind of a way that's already baked in to the system. We are going to be looking at kind of our own version of this, but if you're in need of something today, give this a try. And if it doesn't work for you, let me know, because this has worked for me in the past. I also did just update my Google Chrome today, so it could be that, or it could be just my bandwidth on my computer with all my screen sharing and webinars. So give that a try. If it doesn't work out, let me know. Um, but you can try that today. So
Okay, here's one. With a small company, we may have 3 people on a pack out. We're all fairly new to Encircle and are learning what works best for our company. Would you recommend each person inventories as they pack their own boxes? Okay, so I'll answer that part. Um, I would recommend only one person taking inventory and having a partner with them at the packing table or as you're inventorying and packing the furniture. And then the third person, they would be the runner. They would be the ones bringing the fresh boxes to you, taking away your boxes. So I would have 2 people doing inventory, but technically only one of the two would be, importing or using Encircle. Um, yeah. So that's my input. Do you have any thoughts, Anna?
I have to apologize because I was scanning
Oh,
questions.
I gotcha. No problem. Okay. Um,
Um,
Here's one. Can the Contents app be shared with the client?
I wouldn't recommend that, just because if you share the claim with your client, that's going to give them editing access. That's what our reports are for. So getting copies of the inventory lists to clients is best done with a report right now. If you are kind of interested in some kind of like client-facing portal or some way to engage or interact with users on the inventory process, let us know. Shoot us an email at success@encircleapp.com, or I want to say product at encircleapp.com might be our product team's email, but I'm not sure of that off the top of my head. So any feedback related to that, Bruce, let us know. We are kind of looking at ways to, um, to improve our contents offering at the moment. So if that would be a feature that is of use to you, let us know, and we'll take that feedback, happily.
Okay, I'll answer one from Jean Diaz. She says, I have expensive furniture and I don't want to damage them. We use blankets and saran wrap to cover them. I'm afraid that the fabric of the blanket might stick to the furniture. I would like to get the paper moving blanket soon. What would you recommend to use in the meantime? Um, as far as like expensive furniture, it's like I don't know, does it have like high detail? Like what's unique about it that you feel that the blankets would stick to the furniture? Because I don't think that it will. Um, but I would like to talk about like if you were to put, and can I share my screen real quick?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, I'll show you what can happen when we put stretch wrap or bubble wrap directly against wood furniture or like lacquered, like the guitar. This is glass and this is stainless steel. So we might think that these non-porous surfaces are impervious to any kind of problems, but the condensation that is created when the plastic wrap or the bubble wrap is against the furniture, that condensation softens the varnish, and it also changes it releases things from the plastic wrap that adhere permanently to these other surfaces. So probably the only thing that can be repaired would be the wood furniture can be refinished, but that's quite an expense. And then maybe the guitar could be repaired, but again, the repair is probably going to cost more than replacement of the guitar. So a lot of people haven't really experienced this yet, but if you're in a humid climate like Texas, um, here in Pittsburgh, we have lots of condensation. So just something to be aware of. And as far as like what you could use in the meantime, other than the fabric moving blankets until you get your paper, I don't know. I don't really have another suggestion. I'm hoping that your moving blankets are smooth enough that it won't really cause any permanent problem. Like, I don't want to tell you to put plastic against it. So maybe the only thing I would put in between the furniture and the moving blanket would be packing paper or tissue paper. But you might not have that on hand either right now. So I hope that helps somewhat. Okay. And Diana's asking, is there a specific way to share a damaged contents photo with a client?
I would use a PDF. So we had another person in the chat kind of asking about those extra photos that you take in the app. And that's at this time, we don't put them in the spreadsheet just because it adds up so much to the size of the spreadsheet. If you've got hundreds or thousands of items and you've got notes on a bunch of them, that just kind of makes the spreadsheet size unmanageable. So like our best recommendation at this point is like if you're wanting to get those extra photos to a client, generate our PDF report, and then you can share that with them as well. Send it along with your Excel sheet. It's a compressed report, so um, so the file size should be manageable, right? And all the photos, are compressed in the report. Also, if it's just like a one-off, if you just have one item that you need to send photos to your client for, you can always export photos from the Encircle app too, or just download it and, attach it to an email, something like that. If it's a one-off.
So Julie's asking how much pack up, wrapping, and boxing do you do when contents are staying on site, just moving into an adjacent room? So Julie, I think it just depends on each job, each circumstance, and the value of the contents and what type of contents they are. I guess bare minimum, I'd like to photograph or video like how you placed them, like what you guys did to prove that you took care of them. Otherwise, like if it is going to be like a long-term storage in this other room, and if there's a chance that these things are going to get knocked off the tabletops or whatever, then I would just do a full pack out. I mean, packing job, wrapping everything and putting them in boxes and sealing the boxes and stacking them. And then my homeowner might prefer that as well. So maybe just ask the homeowner if they have a preference. But the biggest thing is just protecting yourself, that you don't get accused of any breakage.
Barb, I might point out Nicole's question about environmentally friendly packaging materials because I saw she'd posted that in the Q&A as well a while ago. We hadn't got to it, so.
Okay, so I'm sorry, what was the question?
So it says, do you have any suggestions for environmentally friendly pack out materials or packing materials? I know
Oh,
paper is already pretty good, but are there options for more reusable options? In our shop, we have loosely discussed using plastic bins instead for reusability instead of boxes.
I worked with a client this year that they are using totes. They're using gray heavy duty totes with the flip top lids, which is nice because then you don't lose the lid. The issue that they were facing was that the tote, like they would pack everything into the tote, bring it to the shop, clean the contents, and then they would pack the contents into a box. And so they were using their small boxes for for the pack back. So they were having an issue with the fact that the tote was bigger. So what we came up with was we figured out if the tote was like 2.5 cubic feet, how much would fit for a small box. And we created like they're called dunnage bags, and you fill them with air. And so if we pack everything into the tote and put the dunnage bag on top, it like fills that void. And then it was a perfect match that everything in that tote would fit into a small box for the pack back. And if you're in a position to afford, to purchase those totes, now, because your dirty contents are going to be stored in them until you're ready to clean the contents in the totes. So it does kind of involve a bit of an investment and an area like to store the totes. But I think it's a good idea because they're really sturdy, and I see it working for them, and it's definitely environmentally friendly to be able to reuse them. So they probably had hundreds of the totes, which is pretty typical. I mean, one pack out could have 200 boxes easily. So if you can make it work, let me know. Like if you decide to do that. Otherwise, as far as environmentally friendly, I don't have a lot of good suggestions because, the bubble wrap is, plastic. Um, if you can try to reuse the bubble wrap, I would just put them in bags to take them to the next job. So maybe on a pack back, if you're gathering that, it's just kind of awkward having to pull out pieces from a trash bag at your next job. I think it slows you down. So, but yeah, let me know about the totes. Um, Somebody's asking, are the content standards still coming out? Yes. These things take time, longer than we thought. Um, Someone's asking how to start the process to become a certified restorer. You would just go to the RIA website, which is Restoration Industry. So,
I'll find it.
thanks. Thank you, thank you. Let's see. Wait.
Certificate. I found their certification page. Here it
Okay.
is. I'm gonna throw it in the chat. So go there.
Thank you. How would you determine eligibility for salvageable or not when it comes to teepees, yurts that are assembled outside of a home that received fire damage? I just the cleanability of it. I would reach out to a dry cleaner and ask them if they can clean the teepees and yurts. The other way that I would attempt to clean them is in the ultrasonic machine. So I think that's just going to be like, if you want to send me photos of those, I can give you some ideas. There's one, can you explain about particle board furniture again? Because if it's non-salvageable, I just can't tell the insured or carrier I'm not taking it because it's particle board wood. You could then just leave it on site and protect it. Um, you're gonna break it, and so it's like, why should you have to pay for that? I know it's a tricky one. Let's see. Somebody's asking, what would you consider a good sized crew for a standard residential pack out to ensure efficiency without compromising quality? That's a loaded question, but my magic number for a crew is 5. So if you have 2 people doing inventory to start with right out of the gate, you have 3 people getting the whole job site ready. And then you could eventually have 2 teams of 2 doing inventory and having 1 runner. So that's my magic number. And then do you advise to inventory furniture contents on a per room basis and labeling respectively? Yes. And you know, I think within Circle, it's okay. Like if you start in the kitchen and do the kitchen chairs, go to the dining room and do dining room chairs. It's all you're entering the room name, right?
Yes. Yeah. Important part about the Encircle app is everything is kind of done by room, right? The claim is organized by room. And so yeah, here, I'll show you. And I don't think I'm sharing my screen, am I?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, here. Yep, everything's done by room in the Encircle app. So that is kind of our paradigm for organizing the claim. And
So
then,
that'll organize it per room, regardless of who took the photos or
yeah,
when. As long as it's labeled for the kitchen, it will be in the kitchen folder.
yes, absolutely. So you can have as many people working out of the app as you need to. So everybody can be in there taking photos one at a time. And then, if you switch out of the kitchen and you move to the living room, then just, go back and hop into the living room and start adding contents. If you accidentally put contents in the wrong room, you can move them, just kind of like select them and then click move. And then you can always move them, to the right room if you forget to switch rooms while you're, doing your inventory.
I love it. Okay. How do you deal with specialty items like commercial refrigerators, large commercial gas stoves? I would probably call a local appliance company and have them disconnect them, maybe move them, maybe deliver them. There is a company in California. He's actually a dry cleaner, and he started up a separate division just to handle like Viking, really high-end commercial kitchen equipment. So if you want to discuss it further with me, just give me a call or text me. How to deal with specialty items like billiard board tables. Again, just call a billiard company because that slate top, you don't want to break that. Um, we do work that have service level agreements. One of these is that we can only charge for 5 minutes per box to move from our home to our shop. Do you think that this is enough time, or how would you handle this issue? No, it's not enough time to get the box from the house onto your chalk, off your chalk, and into your shop. There's just like, it's impossible. So I don't have any secret of how to get more for it. It's one of the challenges of these service agreements. Um, how to deal with firearms. If you have someone in your company that's comfortable, like if you have a hunter or somebody who, uses firearms, maybe they're the only ones in your company that do handle them. Otherwise, we have guns and ammunition and things on our non-transportables list, and we have the homeowner take care of those.
Right. If I can hop in and answer an Encircle question here.
Yeah.
Hillary asked, is there a way to scan a barcode when you're doing your inventory and Encircle will label your box? So she's talking about QR codes for box labels and then showing where that box was. So that is not a thing in our app yet. We are working on that. Hopefully I can say that. Um, what you want to do today, we do have this concept of locations in the app, so that's how you would manage it in the Encircle app today. I didn't get into this too much, or into our demo, because I was kind of focusing on the inventory part. But we do have locations in the app. So A location is exactly what it sounds like. It's usually a vault or storage facility of some kind. So I can create a location. I could call this like Vault 1. And then I'll just select the boxes that are going in there. And so you can move, boxes in between vaults in the Encircle app today. So that's how we're managing that in the app right now. But yes, we are looking to improve that part of the app um, soon. Um, so hopefully that answers that question.
And I see John asks, do you recommend labeling furniture and soft goods on per room basis? Yes. Yep. It just makes it easy to put things back too. And Anna, you touched on that as well.
Hmm.
Um, uh,
So Luis asked, is there a way to determine the value of contents apart from the customer? So I'm going to take this one.
Go for it.
Luis, if you're still with us, hopefully. So I didn't get into this too much. I didn't actually show it, but I guess I can show it now. So we do have a contents pricing tool. You probably will obviously want to have your stuff better labeled than I did for my sample here. So like for example, this candle, I'll go and fill out the brand. That's Voluspa, right? So I'll make this maybe just a little bit um, more useful. And I could also probably put the scent of it too, just because that's going to help my search later. And I'll show you what I mean shortly. So, of course, it had to be a long name. Okay, so if you want to price items, you can do this in the mobile app or the web app. Most of our users that do this, they do it in the web app. So just come over here, see this little shopping cart icon, and you can choose, a particular retailer if you want, go directly to their website or just do like a Google search. And it's going to take the brand name and the description of your item and start a search. And so you can just, in this window, you can browse around, find whatever website you need to. I know I can find my candle in here somewhere. I'm about to be embarrassing myself with how much I paid for my candle.
You should just say, what? You should just say it was a gift. You're so well loved.
Here we go. Let's just say, no, actually, it's this one, whatever. So with this, you want to just browse around until you find the best match item and then click the yellow price. And it's going to bookmark that. And you just click Save Replacement. It's going to take that price back into Encircle for you. And it'll be bookmarked. So, if you want to verify where you sourced your item pricing, you can do that. You can also you can bookmark multiple replacements. So if you want to show a range of pricing, you can do that. It's only gonna like actually pull the price from one of them and put it into the replacement value field. And if you want to even take it a step further, you can do the ACV costing. So you can apply like item age, for example, and a depreciation category, and that'll actually give you an actual cash value. So I know one of our users said they were kind of like having their clients do the price costing in a spreadsheet. I would argue if you're willing to take that on yourself, um, we make it pretty easy in the app. And I have heard from, a few of our users that they've started venturing into this functionality more just as a way to provide that service to their clients. And I don't know, maybe Barb may be able to speak to this. If you are taking any time to do some pricing in the Encircle system, I don't know, maybe you can bill for that. I don't know if there's a line item or a way to go about that.
Oh, I stepped away for a second. So the question is pricing for total loss inventories.
Yep, so I was just showing how they can do pricing in our app. And I think maybe some of the people in the chat were like, well, we have clients do it now. if you were to switch to doing it yourself, using our tool, um, my question was kind of around is there a way to bill for your time doing that? Is that a trick?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Someone else had been asking about billing for total losses, and the main things I charge for is at the job site, I charge for the supervisor to sort, identify the total loss items. And then I charge for the inventory people who are using Encircle to do all the data entry. And then I charge for the labor to get the contents into the dumpster or bagged and ready for disposal. And then I charge for the dumpster. And then we charge for the hour spent like, that you're talking about right now. And I usually charge for the CPS SUP supervisor rate because you can't have just anybody do this.
Right. So if that's an option for you, then for sure, I'm seeing a comment in there that they charge supervisor hours for that, and most of the time the adjusters don't want to pay for that. So
Yeah.
as a workaround, maybe send them our schedule of loss or send them one of our sheets, and if they can open it up in Excel on their computer, you could at least have them go in there and fill it out for you. So at least you've got it in a format that is ready to work with for them, right? And they can just go in and plop the information in there for you, and then I don't know, maybe you want to re-upload it to the claim later on afterwards. You can always come in and upload stuff like that under the document section of the claim. So that's probably the best way I can think of managing it within Circle right now, if you can't really get away with charging for that time pricing items. So yeah, I thank you, Barb. Thank you, as
Oh,
always.
thank you, Anna.
Um, and also thank you to our audience that stuck around.
Yes, thank you. It was
Um,
great.
we hope to see you guys again in another one of these. Any questions or anything at all? If I neglected to answer a question about Encircle, shoot me an email. And so, yeah, I'm gonna let everybody go. See you all at the next one and hope everybody has a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.